Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon, and Cleveland, Ohio. We have over 700 books, over 25 employees, and we make about 40 new books every year. And we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or maybe you just want to understand the publishing industry.
This week, we are going to take a trip down memory lane. Have you ever been down memory lane?
A few times. It's a little unsafe at night.
My friend Ben, when I was a kid, lived on memory lane. It was pretty colloquial. New development.
Well, what's down this branch of memory lane today?
Oh, I apologize. I am getting sidetracked. So, once upon a time, in a New York far, far away, Seth Tobocman's book, War in the Neighborhood, was published in 1999. And it's a brilliant graphic novel detailing the history of the squatting movement and how the police basically brought out like military style forces to fight them. And, you know, like any story that is of your own experience, like plenty of people have like quibbles or details as they remember differently. But it was really one of the first documents like of that story. Oh. And so you can imagine the tragedy when roughly 2/3 of those books were bound in a manner where the text fell out of the spine.
Oh, the pages fell out?
Yes.
Oh, I hate that.
Or yes, I guess more. Yes.
The text didn't fall off the cartoon images because that would be cool.
That would be, whoa. But yes.
And then you had a pile of the tiniest letters.
The pages fell out of the binding.
Oh.
And this seemed to be a failure of the printer. And the publisher at that time, Autonomedia, they based in Brooklyn, and I think they've been more or less fighting to keep their warehouse since that book came out. And it's now been a while, but when that book was new, you know, they weren't necessarily equipped to like have it out with their printer to be like, hey, you're gonna make good on this mistake. And, you know, so there was like a series of finger pointing and then in the end, you know, nobody wanted to rebind the books. So, you know, they tried to, you know, because there was interest in sales for this book, it was like much anticipated. Their distributor didn't want to do the work for them. They didn't want to take care of it themselves. And so young me appeared and I said, oh, okay, I'll just, you know, they were like, they initially offered it to me at, I think $3 a book, and it was a $20 paperback.
So they were trying to like offload it basically onto you.
They were trying to get rid of them.
They were like, take this broken book, Joe.
Yeah. And then they're like, how many, like, you know, you would buy these? Okay, we'll sell them to you at $3 a piece. And I was like, okay, cool, sure. And instead of just selling this falling apart book, you know, I bought an industrial amount of Gorilla Glue and I began rebinding all of the books.
Wow.
You know, which is really easy when it's done badly because you can just like use your finger to peel out the old binding. And like it does actually come off pretty easily if it's done wrong.
Wow.
And put it in the new binding and then make sure you leave like a 1/2 inch on either edge so it doesn't bleed out. And then you can literally use the weight of the books to hold them together and just make a little stack as you rebind them. Wow. And then wait for them to dry.
How long did it take you to do each one?
I don't know, 5-6 seconds.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it's like you were the industrial book manufacturing worker.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, and I think part of it was just like nobody wants to do that thousands of times But on the other hand, it's like, so like the way I saw it as a young person, I was like, so much work went into this book by the author, by the publisher, by, and there's no reason these should just rot here.
And also, if you could do like 100 of them an hour and then make $7 to $17 per book selling them.
5 to 17, but yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That seems worthwhile.
Yeah, I know.
Especially for young Microcosm.
And it was like a weird thing where like then I was going back and going, so it was like every time I was in New York, I'd be like, okay, I'll take another 100, I'll take 200 more. And then they were like,
what are you doing?
And I was like, I'm fixing the books. And, at one point they were like, what if we don't want to do that? And I was like, oh, if you don't want to, that's cool. Like, you can do it if you want. And then eventually they were like, oh no, you couldn't have them.
I feel like there's a detail here that almost is about to be missed, where every time you were in New York, you would get another 100 books. Mm-hmm. Which, it's a big book, so that was like a lot. And how would you transport them?
It depended, how I was there, where I was going next, what I was up to. I think I started with like 30 books.
I imagine like a giant box balanced on your bicycle handlebars as you wheel it onto the Amtrak train.
Well, I had like buckets.
Yeah, buckets of books.
Commemorated in the Fly song, Buckets of Books, which is, believe it or not, about my buckets of books.
It is. I didn't know there was a song about this. I feel like can we have this? Can we play part of this on the podcast?
Oh, could be. That might be an intellectual property conflict, but we'll see if
okay.
This can be allowed.
This could be like a whole different episode. I'm excited to learn more. I feel like this is a great addition to our Lemonade series.
So the funnier part is that I would normally bring books to St. Mark's Books on my bike in the buckets of books, and then I would empty it out, and then I would fill it up with War in the Neighborhood. Amazing. Which was literally about that neighborhood. Well, a nearby neighborhood, but nonetheless.
That's I love that story.
And so, but, this isn't about young Joe being industrious and clever. This is about, this is the part of the book industry that is ignored or forgotten. This is what publishers need and should be doing, is making intellectual property more valuable.
Yeah, that's true. You were turning that intellectual property that was worth $3 into something that was just like a new book
in 6 seconds. And that's the thing, and and it's on some level I forever, whenever a case like this comes up, I struggle with it, because I'm like, was I smarter? Was I simply more willing? Was I identifying something that nobody else did? And I was like, no, I think at the end of the day, it's just publishers don't want to do this kind of thinking or labor.
That's true.
No disrespect to Autonomedia. They were an underfunded publisher who still exists, but was forever stuck in various battles with mostly with the city. But it's difficult work to be an independent publisher, so
I feel like we would not handle that situation the exact same way today, but that kind of thinking is totally what we use today.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, this is more or less how you do it, because now that book, the rights were purchased by a small Canadian press, and that book is now $30. And I do wonder, how many of those books were recycled or scrapped because they weren't actually, before I got to it,
Well,
not to end on a dour note.
We should put a link to the book in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. So,
read the book. It's a good book.
Think about how you can use just a little bit of elbow grease to make intellectual property more available, more valuable, more sought after, etc. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.